Had you already made up your mind? Did it make a difference?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Facts. Facts are facts.
You're supporting
Trump. Economics. It's as simple as that.
We asked McDermott about the baseless claims made by Trump during the debate that Haitian migrants are eating pets in Ohio. McDermott bought in.
There's actually all over the internet that's on it.
Just when you think you've seen the best from JD Vance, he outperforms himself again by going on to 3 networks this morning and ripping all of them to pieces, especially our favorite CNN Dana Bash, who, you know, if she was really being judged by the court of public opinion, one could argue that JD Vance ended her career this morning.
So the mayor of Springfield, Ohio, Rob Rue, said, quote, all these federal politicians that have negatively spun our city, they need to know they're hurting our city. And it was their words that did it. Before Donald Trump talked about eating dogs and cats on a debate stage, it was you, Senator, who first elevated this baseless rumor. These are your constituents. So why are you putting them at risk by continuing to spread claims about Haitian immigrants, despite officials in your state saying that there's no evidence and pleading for you to stop?
Well, Dana, first of all, what's putting the residents of Springfield at risk, which was a town completely ignored by the American media until Donald Trump and I started surfacing some of these concerns, is that they can't afford housing, they can't afford health care. The schools have been overwhelmed, the hospitals have been overwhelmed, and they're overwhelmed because Kamala Harris allowed 20,000 Haitian migrants to get dropped into a small Ohio town of about 40,000 people, and it's completely overwhelmed the services. Now, you ask, why have I talked about some of the things that I've been talking about? Let me just say this. My constituents have brought approximately a dozen separate concerns to me. 10 of them are verifiable and confirmable, and a couple of them I talk about because my constituents are telling me firsthand that they're seeing these things. So I have 2 options, Dana. I can ignore them, which is what the American media has done for years to this community, or I can actually talk about what people are telling me. And of course, many of the things that the media says are completely baseless have since been confirmed. For example, I was told, Dana, that by the American media that it was baseless that migrants were capturing the geese from the local park pond and eating them. And yet there are 911 calls from well before this ever became a viral sensation of people complaining about that exact thing happening. So my attitude is listen to my constituents. Sometimes they're going to say things that people don't like, but they're saying things that people don't like because their town has been overwhelmed, and it's my job to try to fight for them and to protect them. Kamala Harris opened the border, and now these people are suffering. That's what I'm focused on, Dana.
I agree with him 100%. And I would add on to this with a point I made on X, which is no one cared about Springfield, Ohio until Donald Trump said something. They didn't even care when JD Vance said something. He was in Congress talking about Springfield, Ohio, and raising these same concerns. So, you know, the fact that they don't even show the clip where he was in the Senate talking about this, where he was in Congress talking about this before this debate, this was many months ago, shows how disingenuous this network is, of course. They only want to report the facts that matter to them, and they only want to talk about the facts in a way that shuts down Trump and whatever message he's trying to get out there. And when we're talking about immigration, we always arrive at the same conclusion, which is it's done more damage to the country than good.
Senator, I have to go through several things that you just said. First of all, the Clark County Sheriff and the Ohio Department of Natural Resources reviewed 11 months of 911 calls. They only identified 2 instances of people alleging Haitians were taking geese out of parks. They found 0 evidence to substantiate those claims. Also, other evidence that you have talked about, even you've retweeted alleged evidence, are unsourced social media videos from a different city, apparently no connection to Haitians. And this is from a conservative activist who offered a $5,000 reward for such things. And then going just backly to the schools and the hospitals and so forth being overwhelmed, nobody is disputing that the town of Springfield, Ohio needs help. But you're not just a bystander. you're the senator from Ohio. So instead of saying things that are wrong and actually causing the hospitals, the schools, the government buildings to be evacuated because of bomb threats, because of the cats and dogs thing, why not actually be constructive in helping to better integrate them into the community? Because there are a lot of employers there who say that the Haitian workers are helping fill jobs that they need desperately filled.
Dana, first of all, let me just respond to a couple of things that you said, but I want to start with something you said, which I think is frankly disgusting and is more appropriate for a Democratic propagandist than it is for an American journalist. There is nothing that I have said that has led to threats against these hospitals. These hospitals, the bomb threats and so forth, it's disgusting. The violence is disgusting. We condemn it. We condemn all violence.
Senator, this happened after you and President Trump were on the debate stage, said that cats and dogs were being eaten.
You asked a question, Dana, and I'm going to go ahead and answer it. What we have said is that this town has suffered terribly under the policies of Kamala Harris. Now, you just accused me of inciting violence against the community when all that I've done is surface the complaints of my constituents, people who are suffering because of Kamala Harris's policies. Are we not allowed to talk about these problems because some psychopaths are threatening violence? We can condemn the violence on the one hand, but also talk about the terrible consequences of Kamala Harris's open border on the other hand. Now, let me just fact check a couple of other things that you said, Dana, because it's important. You said that all of these migrants are in the country legally. They are in the country through what's called temporary protective status.
Right.
That is when Kamala Harris waved a magic amnesty wand, taking people and giving them legal status. That is not to say that they're here legally. That is a terrible indictment of her amnesty policies that have further opened the border and further caused terrible migration into this country.
All right, two things for you. Free speech does not equal inciting violence. Meaning just because Trump said they're eating the dogs and the cats, that doesn't mean he incite violence, right? Let's use common sense here, people. But this is what they do. It doesn't matter how nicely Trump will put something. They will stretch it to the point where they're saying that he's inciting violence. It's just like what they did on January 6th. He never said, yeah, break into the Capitol, overturn the election, let's kill all these people. He didn't say anything like that. He said march peacefully and patriotically, right? So there's a difference there. So it's up to a person's interpretation. And when you have Trump derangement syndrome, your interpretation of everything he says is violent. And that's what's going on here with Dana Bash. So he's right that she's more of a propagandist than an actual American journalist, which is shameful. The second thing is she speculated on what actually caused the bomb threats. She doesn't know what caused the bomb threats. She has no letter or official announcement or an investigation that is underway stating that the person who did the bomb threats, did they even catch the person in the first place? And if they did catch him, did that person say, I threatened to bomb up this hospital because of what Trump and JD Vance said? No. So it's just pure speculation. And again, a failure for an American journalist to speculate like that.
You might not agree with the policy, and obviously you don't, which is totally fair and legitimate. There are policy disagreements all the time. But the fact is it is the law because President Biden and Vice President Harris are. But I don't want to frankly go down this conversation about policy
Dana,
because
you made a point. You don't. I agree. You don't want to talk about policy.
No,
Dana,
what I want to talk about
instead of about the fact,
Senator,
that
it was
Harris,
your distraction.
Dana, granted amnesty.
You were the one who started talking about eating dogs and cats.
Level.
You were the one who
Dana,
brought this
my
up. The president said it to 60 million people.
Cats, and I talked about it because you were ignoring this community. My constituents talked about it.
Have you been
to
Springfield?
It's my responsibility to surface their concerns when the American media
Have you been to
it.
Springfield?
Dana, I've been to Springfield probably 100 times in my life.
How about
I've taken
recently,
my children
since
to
you've
get
heard
ice
this?
cream at Young's Jersey Dairy.
Have you heard recently since you've gotten these calls?
Have I been in the last 4 days?
No,
I'm
talking
haven't been
about
in the last 4 days, but I've
since
talked
you've
to a lot
gotten
of
these
people
calls
in
from the
Springfield, Dana,
constituents.
and they're telling me this stuff is happening. Dana, would you like to ask me questions and then let me answer them, or would you like to debate me on these topics. I noticed that when you had Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, you gave them multiple choice answers to the questions that you asked, and you allowed them to answer the questions. I'm happy to be here to talk about policy, but if you're going to interrupt me every single time that I open my mouth, then why am I even doing this? So please ask a question, and I'd ask you to be polite enough to let me answer it.
Yes, I am, and I think that if Kamala Harris and Tim Walz were making unsubstantiated claims that had racist undertones about people eating dogs and cats, and they didn't answer the questions about that, then I would have similar interactions with them. As you know, I am very grateful that you come on the show, as I am for other Republicans. But this is something that you're hearing from constituents. I did a lot of reporting. I talked to people in Ohio over the weekend, and they're really worried about these claims.
Now, I paused it right here because I want you to see her face. This is a perfect moment to pause. This is what's happening in her mind right now, right? Because JD Vance makes a great point. You not only ask questions of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, but you will ask them in a way where you give them multiple choice answers on how to respond, right? And you provide zero pushback. And they're all baseless claims that they make. Like, for an example, Trump wants to pass a national abortion ban. She never came back and said, well, wait a minute. Trump never said that. There's no recording. There's no article. There's no press statement saying that he wants to pass a national abortion ban. She doesn't do that. So JD Vance is spot on about this one. And he spoke to an issue that a lot of conservatives have, a lot of people who obviously despise the media, people who do support Trump, even people who don't support Trump. They don't like this either, where you'll see a Republican go onto the news, they're asked a question, and then all of a sudden they're getting cut off 5 seconds in. And this just isn't with elected officials. This is with political commentators, podcasters, anyone who's on the right historically. Their speech is usually interrupted, censored, or they're cut off. I mean, this has happened so many times. Now, the unfortunate part about this interview is how much time Dana Bash spent talking about Springfield, Ohio, and not the other policy or issues that matter to Americans. Springfield should definitely get attention, but so should the other issues. The total interview came in at about 17 minutes.
I was quoting the actual mayor of Springfield, Ohio, begging after the bomb threats, begging federal officials, to please stop putting negative attention on his city. And I'm not talking about the policies. I'm not talking about the very real challenges that Springfield has. I'm talking about baseless rumors about Haitians eating dogs and cats. And that, after that was said on a debate stage, that is when these bomb threats started. And that is a fact. Senator, I just want to move on. I have two other quick issues separate from this that I want to talk to you about.
Dana,
go ahead.
Again,
please go ahead.
I think this is actually an important conversation.
Okay.
Look, the Springfield mayor, he's dealing with a lot of terrible things. I certainly sympathize with the guy, and we're going to try to help him out. But he did not accuse me of inciting a bomb threat. He just didn't. And if we're going to take the firsthand accounts of people who are on the ground in Springfield, why don't you bring on some of the people on your program who say that the migrants are eating their pets? You're applying a double standard here. You're saying if one person accuses JD Vance, I'm going to take that person's word as the gospel truth, even if you misrepresent it. If you have another person who's saying they're eating the cats, you're going to completely ignore them, attack them, silence them, and harass them. That double standard is why people don't trust the media and why we're not talking about public policy 51 days out from a presidential election.
Okay. If you have somebody you want to tell us about who has proof that somebody ate their cat, of course we want to hear that. We certainly have had no evidence that that is actually something that happened. And I just want to say, I have not accused you of anything. I am quoting the mayor who said, after these bomb threats, federal politicians are negatively spinning our city. They need to know they are hurting our city. It was their words that did it. Okay? I'm quoting him, and it seems to be a cause and effect.
Roll roll the tape. You just accused me of inciting a bomb threat. There's no evidence of this. I condemn violence and threats of violence. We should be able to do that and also still talk about what's going on in Springfield.
I'm glad to hear that you condemn it. That is very important. We had a lot of other issues to get to, but I really hope that you do come back so we can talk about other issues. Senator, thank you so much. I'm
not too sure you're going to want him to come back, because every time he comes on that show, he embarrasses you, right? I mean, she did tell him that his words incited a bomb threat. It's in the tape, right? And so I just find it funny. Let me cover my final points. Number one, two things can be true at the same time. In fact, three things can be true at the same time when we're talking about Springfield, Ohio. The mayor does not want unwanted attention. I could understand that. He doesn't want all of the news people and the press and all this other stuff coming to the city and asking questions. He doesn't want that type of attention. No one does. But two, the citizens are fed up. That is true. They've gone to city council. In fact, there's a current recall out for the city council members because they have not been addressing the issue. And there have been accusations stated at these city council meetings saying that the migrants are eating people's pets. Now, is that true or false? It remains to be seen, because this is coming from the citizens who live there. And third, no one gave a damn about Springfield, Ohio until Trump said something. So all of those things can be true at the same time. It is on the media to apply a more journalist standard to this versus a propaganda standard. And that's the issue with CNN and Dana Bash, and why all these networks are truly just dying slowly.
That's what they're used to, bro. They're in the park grabbing up ducks by their neck and cutting their head off and walking off with them and eating them like these. And it's going to get bigger, and it's only going to get worse. And y'all sitting up there in these chairs, all y'all need to get out here and do something. Y'all making hundreds of thousands of dollars. Y'all need to put on a t-shirt and some Crocs, and then y'all need to come out here in these streets, and y'all need to go out here and I'm out here before the police is.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Okay, so is what he's saying false? Or does he have a right to say what he said, voice what he believes he has seen or heard? So is that baseless? You know, this is why I'm saying the media, they get an F, because they no longer want to hear from people like that. They didn't even play that clip, right? It's only people like myself and other conservatives and journalists with their own platforms that have played that exact clip. The news hasn't played that clip. They won't play that clip because it supports what Donald Trump said. So it's just unfortunate that CNN, particularly Dana Bash, can't even be honest about something as crazy as this. That's my opinion. What about you guys? What do you guys think about JD Vance? What grade would you give him on how he handled this situation? What grade would you give Dana Bash and her inability to be a true journalist in this situation? I want to hear what your guys' thoughts are and more in the comment section below. Thank you for checking out the video today. Stay grateful, stay focused, and stay true. Peace.